So please God, in the merit of this year, may it offer protection to uh, all of the civilians as well as military within Klal Yisrael. And I hope we destroy our enemies swiftly and
Amen.
with the same mercilessness that they've shown us. And this is not the time for rachamim. I hope we obliterate them from the face of the planet, all of them.
And with zero, or preferably otherwise
Zero tolerance.
no,
Zero tolerance.
no, but also zero. What's it called? Uh, uh, people losing their lives. What do you call? I was going to say it
Zero
correctly. Sorry.
Casualties.
Zero casualties. That's the word I was going to say now. Sorry.
Yeah. And may the worst that happen is a pinky toe gets knocked out of joint. That's it.
Yeah.
Or a big toe.
Yes.
I don't know. Those big toes are worth more than an Arab. I really love my big
Yes, mate. I know you do.
Okay.
Right. I'm happy to break my big toe by kicking the Ayatollah Khomeini to death. That I'm happy to.
Sounds good. All right, Kevin.
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, so in this week is Parashat Bereshit coming up. So we start the cycle again of the Torah reading. So it's Bereshit, which means in the beginning. Reshit, like Rishon, is one, and that relates to the word beginning, but that's not what I wanted to discuss. I wanted to discuss something that's very abstract, and it's a chok, which means we can't really find answers to it. It says, Damon, you may have to help me out here, because it says it says, Hashem said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters and let it separate between water and water. So Hashem made the firmament and he separated between the waters which were beneath the firmament and between the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. God called the firmament heaven, and there was evening and there was morning, second day. So this firmament,
yes,
separated. It says you can't. No one has an explanation for this. It's a very abstract. I mean, it's not an abstract thing. It was a physical thing, but there's no explanation for it. And it says here. I was reading the commentaries about a week and a half ago, and it said we can't question or ask about this. It just is what it is. Like certain things in our faith. There are no answers. We have to just accept it as it is. That's called a chok. Damon, do you have any more? Can you add to that? I mean, tell me if I said it correctly.
No, you know what you're doing, Kev. You know what you're doing. Believe people listen.
But sometimes it's like the upper and the lower waters were created. So it sounds like obviously the seas and the rivers, the lower waters, the upper waters. Or can you hear the helicopter in the background? Upper waters are probably the clouds and from the stratosphere are going in between the sky and before outer space, before out of the atmosphere, so to speak. Maybe that's what it means, but that's not really water as we know it. So we don't really know what this actually means.
So what I understood from the firmament was it's a separation between the corporeal realm and the physical realm, meaning that it wasn't just a separation of the waters. It meant that there was certainly a distinction, and that was done on Monday, which is machloket. So generally, Monday is not always a positive day in many respects, and that's when it was brought down in the Chumash. The firmament is separating between the high and lower worlds. It's not just the physical. So there's multiple levels. There was an amazing book, Kevin, by the Art Scroll that had one book on Bereshit, this thick. And then they did the next one with Noach and Lech Lecha, but they were thick books, and it gave you every midrash and every commentary that was ever written on the first parsha. And they say, Rav Matthias Weinberg says it's like pointillism, is that if you look at all the other parshas, they can fit into Bereshit. That is the blueprint for every other parsha. And pointillism means that when you look far away, you see a picture emerge, like they do it with dots. The Impressionists did it with dots. And when you look close, you can't see what it is, and you look far away, you can see what it is. But it's all the other parshas that fit within Bereshit. Now, pointillism never worked for me, Kevin, because I'm so blind that if I take off my glasses, it looks like it's meant to look far away. But that's a myopia issue.
You missed that point, actually.
I missed that point, exactly. Kev, you did amazingly well. So we understand.
Okay, Shkar, well, thanks for filling in the extra points that I missed.
Cool. Listen, I just keep you safe. We're looking forward to seeing you. Not under these circumstances, though. Anyway, so let's discuss it. I'll give you a chat later, by the way, Kev. Anyway, the Gemara discusses the credibility. Last time we were getting to this issue of a court messenger who's going to serve as a summons. So according to Ravina, regarding the messenger of the rabbis, what's the messenger of a rabbi? It's basically a court messenger who returns from serving a summons. And he gives a report that the defendant refused to comply. We believe him like two witnesses. In other words, what we are saying is that a court messenger is not assumed to lie before the court. And if he said that the defendant was not cooperative, we believe him. And why do we say like two witnesses? Because two witnesses are believed as having objectivity, because it's not subjective compared to one witness. And therefore, two against one, meaning he is believed, not the defendant. So the Gemara is going to qualify the ruling, and it says, look, it only applies with respect to excommunication regarding the defendant for failing to obey the summons to start with. But with respect to writing a bill of excommunication against him, since we thereby cause him a monetary loss because he must pay money to the scribe for writing the bill, we do not rely on the messenger's testimony. So all we are saying is, in a case where it's not going to cost the defendant actual money, you might say, but it's still costing him money, because if it goes against him, he has to pay. But that's not called direct cost. It's indirect cost, and his behavior thus far has caused it as well. So in a bill of, if there's a bill of excommunication written against somebody, he's basically not released from the excommunication until he pays the scribe's fee for writing the bill in addition to the debt. So if you have to pay for the scribe's bill, that's a direct costing, and indirect is having to pay what he owes to the plaintiff in order to get the excommunication released. Okay. So what does this actually mean? That we don't rely on the messenger's testimony. We're saying that the testimony of two witnesses is required to impose a monetary obligation. So basically, on the basis of only one witness, which is the messenger in this case, the court messenger, although his testimony is reliable, court won't write a bill of excommunication, since ultimately it causes the person being excommunicated to suffer monetary loss to pay for the scribe directly. And thus, if a court messenger reports that a person refuses to obey a summons, the court will excommunicate that person, but it won't arrange for a bill to be written as proof. So in other words, there is an opinion saying that there's still the bill of excommunication, but they won't. It will be a verbal excommunication, or not a bill of excommunication. According to the other opinion, the court appointed messenger is seen as one witness, and that why one witness? It's not that one witness is not believed, but you can only extract money on litigation based on two witnesses, and therefore is seen as one witness because we don't incur to the defendant a cost of a scribe for the bill of excommunication. So therefore is seen as one witness, not two, where we can demand monetary payment on a direct level, not just an indirect level of losing the case. Okay, so another law that pertains to serving a summons. So Ravina said, we serve a summons through the mouth of a woman or through the mouth of neighbors. So what does this actually mean? we're saying that these aren't. This isn't some random woman or etc. This is basically a woman that is either family or a neighbor that is going to see the defendant, but that's only when the person being summoned is not presently in the same town as the court. Okay, because at the end of the day, if that person lives near the court can issue summons directly. So we're saying that anybody that either lives near the defendant, we can rely on those people to deliver the summons. So if the defendant doesn't appear in court at the appointed time, we can assume that he actually received the summons and is deliberately disobeying it. And therefore, for flouting the law, we excommunicate him. That's according to Rashi. And the court instructed the neighbors of the woman to transmit the summons to the defendant when he's basically going to return if he leaves town. Okay, so if he's not at the same town as the court, but then obviously we rely on a third party. But if he is in the same town, we're not going to excommunicate him on the assumption that the woman or neighbor served the summons. Why? Because maybe they didn't convey the summons to him, because they might have said to themselves that the court messenger found him and told him. In other words, they might have thought that since this person to be summoned is in town, doesn't live far from the court's messenger probably found him and gave him the message, and the court asked them to deliver the summons only as a precaution. Okay, and in that case, the court must send an official messenger to transmit the summons. Right, so the Gemara records another qualification of its ruling, that the court relies on a woman or neighbors to deliver the summons. And guys, we say this only when it's known that the person summons doesn't part ways with his neighbors, or he passes the gates of the court on his way home. Okay, so we're saying that you can use a third party if he's going in the opposite direction. So if he lives in Johannesburg, but the courts are in Rivonia, and he's working in the Selby, he's not going to pass the gates of court on his way home. But if he does pass the gates of court on his way home, or is within the close suburb, we can't excommunicate him on the assumption that the neighbors have served the summons, because they might have said to themselves, listen, the court found him and told him. So the Gemara qualifies its ruling that a woman or neighbors can be relied upon to serve the summons, and that's only known when the person being summoned is coming home on that day. If he's not coming home on that day, we can't excommunicate him on some sort of assumption that they served the summons, because we consider the possibility that they might have forgot about their assignment before he returned. So, guys, in conclusion, the court relies on a woman or neighbors as opposed to a messenger of the court to deliver a summons only to a defendant who's not currently in town, but he is going to return on that day, and he's not going to pass by the court on his way home. In other words, they can't, the neighbors or the woman, make an assumption that he's received it through any other means other than their message to him. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm a bit puzzled by one thing. Is why didn't they just ask for a signature for him to sign it? Then it doesn't matter who gives it to him. Then it wouldn't be less of an issue.
Right. So what you're saying is that generally when we look at modern court systems, we see that when you deliver a summons, the party has to have actually signed that they've received a summons.
Yeah, it would negate most of these problems if that's what they did. They obviously didn't do it. I don't know why not. Yeah,
so I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, if somebody signed for it, they've received a summons. What happens if somebody refuses to sign acknowledgement for any post that they get, or they don't get, even if they don't get the post? What do you do then?
If they refuse, then they must notify the court that they gave it to him. He refused to sign it, and then the court has to come and take action. It's the same principles that apply in today's world. All I'm saying is that technology was available then. Computers wasn't. I understand a database wasn't, but that was available. A pen and a paper was available. So I just don't understand why there's no mention of a signature here to give security comfort that he actually received it. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm surprised. It's obviously not there. I don't know why.
So firstly, I don't disagree with you. I think at the end of the day, when they deliver the message, it wouldn't make sense that it would just be verbal, that one of the neighbors or the woman could turn around and say, oh, listen, the court's looking for you. You've got to appear in court on this day. It would make sense that they deliver a message that he would have to sign.
Correct.
But,
and then the court comes to collect it goes back a couple of days later to the neighbor to collect the summons, to make sure it's signed, so that they know that he said it, he's read it.
So I agree with you. Maybe he had to sign something. The Gemara doesn't mention it, but it makes sense that if the message was delivered, that they would have to sign it. But what happens if you have a case where I live next to you, you're my friend, I don't particularly care for the court, and they say you must tell your friends you were summoned? I'm going to say, no, I'm not prepared to do that because I don't want to have a bad relationship with him. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved. You want to send a messenger to him, you can with pleasure. But what does it have to do with me? I'm not going to tell him he's in trouble and make him sign so that he's responsible. It has nothing to do with me.
Correct. And there's also a risk involved. I also find it surprising because there's a couple of there's mafia out there. You go to a mafia oak and you send him you go to a summons, the guy can shoot you on the spot. There's the court messenger is different. That's part of his job. The risk is part of it. But now to outsource that risk to his neighbor who maybe he despises, and he's already ready to shoot dog. Can't stand him, and now he brings him a summons and shoots him on the spot. I think I kind of find it strange. I just find it strange. I'm not saying it's wrong, because it's obviously not.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, Gavin. I don't get it either. They're just saying that in order for the neighbor...
There's certain guys in this town that I wouldn't like to take any summons to, even if I'm a third party not involved, even if I'm detracted from the whole thing. To be the sheriff of the court, they're not directly involved. It's a bit of a risky job to be a sheriff of a court. God can just start shooting at you.
I agree. I wouldn't
even
do
in
it.
Today's time. This is like being the sheriff of the 100%. Yeah,
even if the neighbor's short with you, I'm not going to deliver summons to get you into trouble if I want to have a good relationship. I don't understand.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Okay, let's continue because it's not there.
So the Gemara basically, Gavin, defines a person when he's been excommunicated for contempt of court and when he's released from excommunication. Okay. So Rava said, in the case of a person against whom a bill of excommunication was written for not coming to the court. Just give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to... All right. So Rava says, in the case of a person against whom a bull of excommunication was written for not coming to court, the law is until he actually comes to court, we don't tear it up for him. Similarly, if a bull was written for not obeying the verdict of the court, the law is until he actually obeys, we don't tear it up for him. Okay? So in other words, it doesn't matter what he says he's going to do. Actions are the only thing that allow the court's verdict to be carried out. In other words, if he says he's going to pay, we don't believe he needs to pay. So we annul the decree of...
Give me 1 second, Damon. Hello? Yeah, I'm opening. That's fine. Continue. Sorry.
So we are... No problem. So, Gavin, we annul the decree of excommunication as soon as he actually pays. Okay?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, but there's a certain Gemara that rejects the ruling, and it says it's not so. In fact, once he says, I'll obey, we immediately tear it up for him. In other words, it's saying it's fine because he might not have the necessary funds at that time. However, if he was excommunicated for not appearing in court, which in that case is no excuse for him not to comply immediately, he's basically in contempt of court until he pays. So you've got these two opinions.
And is there a possibility, I'm just asking, I'm more curious because it happens in the current world. Is there a payment plan option? Is there anything mentioned of that? If it's not mentioned, just move on.
Yeah, we actually did say this in the many dafs ago. Said he has to pay cash, and they said, well, what if he doesn't pay cash? Says he pays some of the grains at the higher value. Well, we said why? So that he can sell quality products rather quickly in order to liquidate cash. If he doesn't have the do that, and if we say if he doesn't have the money, he can pay what he can pay. They're going to do whatever they can to extract.
No, I thought so. I thought there was something like that. I just didn't remember. So thank you.
Yeah, and personally, I wouldn't tear up any sort of full of excommunication until he pays, because the whole reason he got in the situation is that he's not a man of his word. So the Gemara defines the point at which the court excommunicates a person for not obeying the summons. According to Rav Chisda, we summon a person to appear before the court on Monday, the following Thursday, and the following Monday, as Arthur and Gavin were discussing yesterday. And we make an appointment, and in other words, and afterwards another appointment. So we do it in advance. And the next day, the Tuesday after the last Monday, we write a bill of excommunication against him. So he's not excommunicated for failing to obey the first two summonses, because there might have been some pressing business out of town. But the third one's the charm. And that's what gets him clocked. Okay, so the Gemara says there's a related incident. According to Rav Asi, who visited Rav Kahana, he saw a certain woman whom Rav Kahana had summoned to appear before the court in the evening, and in the morning he wrote a bill of excommunication against her for failing to appear. So Rav Asi said to Rav Kahana, does Master not agree with that which Rav Chisda said, that we summon a person to appear before the court on the Monday, the following Thursday, and the following Monday, and only then do we send a bill of excommunication? And Rav Kahana said to him, listen, those words apply to a man or a woman who is out of time, and they've got a pressing engagement, and it can be seen that it's not a measure to avoid a summons, but it's part of either their business practice or they've got a simcha, or whatever the case may be. But in this case of this woman, it was known by witnesses that she like was in town. She shopped at the local mall or marketplace, and she didn't come. So there's no excuse, and therefore she is in contempt of court immediately from the first session. Okay. So even a woman, it's not because it's a man. If a woman has to attend business or simcha out of town, she's also given 3 summons before being subject to excommunication. Now, the Gemara is going to list times before when the court is not allowed to require somebody to appear before it. So according to Rav Yehuda, we don't summon a person to appear in court in the days of Nisan, nor in the days of Tishrei. Okay, why? Because grain, guys, is harvested in Nisan and grapes in Tishrei. And since people, guys, are busy in those months with the farming and harvesting, etc., they're not required to appear before the court during these times. Because sometimes you could have a flood, adverse weather conditions where you actually have to be very much present. Now, you can't summons a person, according to Rav Yehuda, even on the eve of the festivals, nor on the eves of Shabbat. Why? They're getting ready for the Chag in Shabbat. So just a clarification. So we're saying, okay, so this issue of not issuing summons on Nisan, what about that? So you can issue a summons on Nisan, but not within the month of Nisan that they have to appear. It can be for the month after. Or if it's on Tishrei, can issue a summons that they have to appear in Cheshvan. Then we can offer summons to a person because it gives them enough time to their harvesting of their grain or their tending to their grapes. But we don't make an exception on the eve of Shabbat or the festival, because it doesn't give them enough time, because there's an urgency. It's not like you tell somebody in the beginning of the month, in the beginning of the next month, they summons. here you're getting people are getting ready for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Because of that preoccupation, they will forget that they're going
Damon,
to
just
Summit.
repeat the last
Yeah.
minute. Sorry, you cut out. I don't know if it's just me.
Okay, no problem. So, Gav, if there's a festival or Shabbos, and
Yeah.
they have to appear in court on the Monday, we don't issue it on Erev Shabbat or Erev festivals or anything like that, because they're going to be too preoccupied. So we're saying, what about the months of Nisan and Tishrei? Well, you can't give them a summons for Nisan within the month of Nisan, because they have to attend to grain, and within Tishrei they have to attend to grapes. So you can't issue them in Tishrei for the month of Tishrei, but you can issue summons in the month of Tishrei for Cheshvan, and in the month of Nisan for Sivan. So you can do it for the month off, but certainly not post Chag for Shabbos or the festival, because it's too close. So according to Rav Nachman, that was Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rav Nachman, we don't serve a summons, neither to the attendees of a color during the color. Now I thought, okay, color is when somebody gets married. I thought, yeah, I get it. It's a wedding dampener. Nobody wants a summons when they're getting married or at a function. So this is a different form of color, by the way. A color apparently is a public lecture given every Shabbat. So if someone attends the color every weekday at the shul, every week on a Shabbos, he's not allowed to be told then that he's got to appear in court the following Monday, because otherwise nobody's going to rock up to the shiur, guys, on a Shabbos. So we're saying that's kind of out of bounds. That color is a weekly Shabbos shiur, and you can't issue it there, nor to the attendees of the regular during the regular. So what's a regular? The regular is a public lecture given 30 days prior to a festival about the halachas and the laws of that festival. So also because that's a community gathering, we don't want nobody to avoid that, because they need to be informed of the halachas. But not everybody holds by the same opinion. But in any way, because often you'd have a case where plaintiffs would come before Rav Nachman on the day of the color, that Shabbos talk, and asking to summons their opponents to court. And he'd say to them, listen, it's not for you that we're holding this Shabbat shiur so that you can issue your summons. Choose another forum. I'm not here to issue your summons. I'm here to give a shiur. But however, the Gemara says there are charlatans that attend those lectures, and you just can't get hold of them for love or money. And we're concerned that because they know it's a forum where you're not allowed to issue a summons, it's almost a safe zone, they're going to attend one of those lectures, but other than that, they're very hard to find. So in that particular...
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? They're going to find a place that does back-to-back colors.
That's cute, man.
Yeah, I thought I'd just raise that.
So a challah for the color, but this is a color, not a bride. It's a color Shabbos love. They could show, but what we are saying is basically, if a person's known to be a ducker and dive and a charlatan, and we're concerned that they might avoid the summons altogether, you can serve a summons to a person during one of those lectures. You don't have to worry, because it's a lecture about spiritual elevation. They're criminals, man. That's the least of their worries. So there are exceptions. So if you remember that we're just almost going to end on this night, we've got like 8 minutes left. And then we finished the Mishnah, the whole Mishnah. So the Gemara discusses...
You don't need power, do you? You do need power. Oh my gosh, there's a power failure.
No,
Why have I finished?
Kav? Kevin? Gav?
It doesn't affect you or me. It just affects Woody.
No. All right, Gav, let me get back to the share bit. We just got a few minutes.
Yeah, no, you can get back now. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So just so we return to the Mishnah in 111B, which rules that if one robs something and leaves it to his heirs, they need not return it to the original owner. Okay. If you remember, it's just bringing up a point, because they acquired the article through a combination of the owner's yush, despair, and a change of domain. So this, guys, follows the explanation of the Mishnah given by Bava Kamma, And according to Rava, they're released from having to return the article only if the article is no longer exists. Like, for example, they ate the food that they got as heirs that was stolen by their father. Okay, so the Mishnah is what we are saying is now said if it was real property, they are liable to pay. So if the father inherited real property, that is a lien against debts that he owes. And Rebbe taught Rav Shimon that the Mishnah does not literally mean real property, like a fixed property where there's a lien, but any stolen property that somebody can identify as having to have belonged to the father. Just like you can identify where the father lived. If it's a cow or a particular car or whatever the case is, a donkey, anything that you can recognize it's the father's, the robber's heirs have to return it for their father's honor. So the Gemara cites an inquiry. Rav Kana asked Rav, if the father robbed a bed and the heir reclines on it, or a table and the heir's eaten it, what's the law according to Rebbe? And the inquiry is resolved. Rav answered him from the following verse: give to a wise man and he will become even wiser. So all it's saying there is, look, at the end of the day in Proverbs chapter 9 verse 9 is that if you're giving a wise man knowledge and you're giving him principle, he can extrapolate the same thing. So it's saying in the Gemara, it uses an example of a donkey and a cow that's recognizable as a father, as the father's, who was a robber. So it means that any article that can be recognized as the father's, that will bring ill repute to him, will basically have to be returned from the heirs to the original owner. Otherwise, it's going to bring a disgrace on their father. So you can extrapolate the principle there exactly the same. It doesn't have to be the article in the example. It's the principle that counts. All right, guys, we're done. Have a good evening.
Yeah, Scott, you were right. You said you'd be quicker. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.